Ladies and gentlemen, we are so back. The Premier League is back, and so is this channel from the dead. New season round the corner. What better time to kick things back off again? Some of you would have seen SDS. We did our prediction videos very recently as well, but a lot of transfer news, a lot of different types of news has happened throughout the Premier League, so I thought, why not give a little bit of an updated version? And here we are. Let me know what you guys think of your predictions. Let me know what you think for the season is going to happen. Let me know if you guys want to see any other types of content throughout this season as well. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Finishing bottom, we have Leeds. The reason why I've got them 20th is because of their manager. I feel like Daniel Farke, he has almost been lucky to keep his job after finishing top of the championship. I spoke to a Leeds fan and I said, what seems to be the issue there? Why is Daniel Farke kind of under fire? And the way he kind of broke it down to me was, firstly, his Premier League track record, of course, having been here with Norwich City twice before and gotten relegated both times. They're kind of concerned that he will come up this time with that same kind of naivety. Secondly, he said there were concerns about the tactical approach and in-game management, and few games last season, even though they finished top, were left a little bit too close for competition. And thirdly, he said the squad development and in terms of the transfer activity. When you look at the Leeds squad, it's not really teeming with quality, and the last time they got promoted, they really spent a lot to kind of solidify themselves as a Premier League club, which kind of, the evidence was there. They finished 9th at the end of the day. But I still don't see enough quality in this team to kind of stay up. Joe Perreault, I think, scored 19 goals last year. Daniel James was their second highest goal scorer with 12. But is that enough firepower to keep them up? I'm not sure. 19th place. Next up, we have a little bit of a surprise here, but I've gone for Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I know the last 2 seasons we've seen the 3 promoted sides are the same sides that are the relegated sides. However, this season I do think that trend will break a little bit, and I think Wolves could be the victims here. Over the last 4 seasons, they finished 10th, 13th, 14th, and 16th. Now that's a downward trajectory in my eyes. I don't know if they can really stop that slide, especially you considering what's happened this summer. They're losing Matheus Cunha, who is, for me, the spirit of that entire team, and their top goal scorer, who scored 15 league goals last year. Then they're losing Ryan Ait-Nouri on the left-hand side, who pretty much has been their entire left-hand side with that wing-back role. Contributed 7 assists last year as well. Huge part of the creativity they have going forward, and has been one of their most consistent players over the last few years. So 2 huge losses, and I haven't seen the replacements coming in. John Arias, credit to him. I've seen some highlights over the preseason. He looks like a potentially very exciting prospect, but once again, I'm looking at that defense. I don't see enough quality to keep goals out. I'm looking at that attack line, and unless Strand Larsen has the greatest season of his life, it's going to be a one-man job, and I can't see much supporting cast there. Vitor Pereira is going to have to work miracles this year, in my opinion, to keep them up, or they're going to have a very strong end to the window. Next, 18th place, we have Burnley.
Asma from London. You know when we hear Burnley, it burns my heart when I hear Burnley.
Now, Burnley, of course, finished joint top last year with 100 points in the Championship alongside Leeds. But can they maintain that quality and standard this year? It'll be tough. Now, Scott Parker, this is the 3rd side he's now gotten promoted, obviously having previously gotten Fulham and Bournemouth promoted. This summer, they've added some experience with Kyle Walker, Leslie Ugochukwu, who had a brilliant second half of the season at Southampton. However, one of the best points of last season was their defensive record, where they only conceded 16 goals. Now, of course, that was just James Trafford in goal. He has now gone to Manchester City in a World Cup year to go and sit on the bench. But that's the decision he's made, and that is a huge loss for Burnley, in my opinion. I look at their attack and I think, you know what, last season, who was your top goal scorer? Oh, Josh Brownhill with 17 goals or 18 goals, I think it was. Your second goal scorer was Zayas Fleming with 12. I can't see the goal scorers in this team to keep them up. They do have some talent. They do have a young manager, of course, who's a bit of a promotion specialist. The golfing class is really going to expose sides like Burnley, I feel like, and they could be in for a troublesome season. Now, 17th place, I have gone for Brentford, and this one might come as a surprise, but you look at what Brentford have lost this summer. They've lost the manager who's been in charge for the last 7 to 8 years in Thomas Frank. They've lost their top goal scorer in Brian Mbeumo. They've lost their captain, Christian Norgard, and there's potential talks of Wissa potentially leaving the club. Those 3 players alone contributed 59 out of the 66 goals they scored last year in the league. That is alarming. And then you add on top of that, a manager coming in, Keith Andrews, who's never managed before, was a set-piece coach last year, is making his debut this season. And is someone who's as inexperienced as him, ready to kind of take that on and get your training wheels on in the Premier League. It'll be tough. Looking at this window, Kelleher, of course, is, in my opinion, a massive upgrade on Flecken. But can Jordan Henderson replicate what Norgard brought in 2025? Can Sade step up and help Wissa carry the attack, or can he replace Wissa? Obviously getting double figures last year. Can Damsgaard replicate the same form he had last year? He was a key player for them last year. Can he create that same kind of output that he had last year? Another big question. For me, there's far too many questions with this Brentford side and not enough answers for me. And I feel like after a certain point in the Premier League, when you've been here for 3-4 years, as a club, you have to evolve. This is the season where they have to evolve, and if they don't, they can suffer the fate of potentially getting relegated in the Premier League. Next up, 16th place, we have Fulham FC. Now, Mark Silva really came in and steadied this ship over the last couple of years, where Fulham went through a period of being a yo-yo club, really and truly. Getting promoted twice, getting relegated twice, and since coming in, he's now finished 10th, 13th, and 11th. Looking at the band of misfits he has, I think they've done brilliant, but I also feel like they've also hit their ceiling. Because while the teams around them are improving, at the time of the recording of this video, Fulham have yet to sign anybody this summer. Now, I know they're trying to do maybe the chilled guy act this window, but brother, this is the Premier League. You must evolve. I understand players like Jimenez, players like Iwobi and Robinson, they're going to have to play massive roles this year in terms of replicating that same form that they had last year. Now, this season could be a tough one for Fulham. And it could be made even tougher if Marco Silva does end up getting sniped and go into a potentially bigger club with bigger ambitions. Because if Fulham keep stagnating and they don't back him in the window and they don't help him improve this band of misfits, I can only see him running towards that exit door quicker than you can blink. Next up, 15th place, we have West Ham. Graham Potter's first full season in charge. Now, West Ham are one of those very confusing sides over the last few seasons, I feel like. Even though last year I felt like they had an incredible window, they managed to massively underwhelm and finish 14th place. Now, there is talent in this team. When you look at the guys like Paqueta, when you look at the guys like Bowen, when you look at guys like Somerville, Emerson, there are bits in this team where you can kind of build around. However, I don't know if they can do it on a consistent basis. Now, big one this summer, of course, they have lost Mohamed Kudus, who has gone to Tottenham Hotspur. That is a big loss for them. And you look at their summer signings over this season, I think the big one is Malik Diop from Slavia Prague as their marquee signing. Then you've got Carl Walker-Peters and Callum Wilson coming in. Now, if I'm a West Ham fan, this isn't filling me with the most confidence, especially considering after the Conference League win a few years ago, you would have thought West Ham would have really kicked on into those Europa League positions. I don't know what type of season West Ham fans are expecting. Looking at their squad, looking at their manager, there's quality there, but can they do it on a consistent basis? 14th place, we have the FA Cup winners, Crystal Palace. When you look at the Crystal Palace side, you actually look at the spine and you look at Henderson, you look at Lacroix, you look at Wharton, you look at Mateta. They've actually got some decent players there that they can kind of build around. I do feel like when you are almost losing your best player every summer, whether that's a Zaha a couple years ago, whether that's an Elise, now you're potentially losing Eze. If they were to lose Eze, I don't know if they've got the capacity to really replace that or if they're ready to even replace that. So 14th place for Crystal Palace, and hopefully they can maybe do another domestic cup run, which will kind of bring some excitement for the fans. Next up, 13th place, we have one of the promoted sides. Now, Sunderland, welcome back to the Premier League. Welcome back. Bit of old school heritage returning. But are they returning new and improved? Now, of course, manager Reggie Lebreet, former Lorient player and manager, and funnily enough, his son actually plays for Lorient currently. Don't ask me why I know random information about Lorient. I did do an FM save with them, so I am a low-key Lorient fan in my heart. Reggie Lebreet taking over last season and he led them to a playoff win, but one thing he definitely showed was a keen eye for recruitment, and I think the signing of Enzo Lafitte in January definitely showed that. Also, former Lorient player, they've added on to that this summer as well. You look at the signings of Granit Xhaka, you look at the signing of Simon Adingra from Brighton, Talbi from Bruges as well, put in a man of the match performance, I think, in the round of 16 last season's Champions League against Atalanta, I want to say, but Habib Diarra as well from Strasbourg. That's the kind of ambition I feel like coming up from the Championship, you really have to show. Now, losing Job, of course, would have been a huge loss at the start of the summer, but I do think Sunderland have recruited very well. I do trust their manager to kind of keep them up. Could they add a little bit more to that defence just to shore it up a little bit? And I think they will comfortably actually stay up. 13th place is where I have them. Next up, in 12th place, we have Brighton. Now, Brighton have almost had the perfect model for sustainability in the Premier League over the past 8 years. Now, this summer, we've seen the departure of João Pedro, Simon Adingra, Evan Ferguson, Pervin Estepinian. And you look at those players, over the last few seasons, they've all been crucial parts or played a part in Brighton's successes. Made a few more of those kind of unknown European signings to Premier League fans, but I do expect them to kind of adapt and kind of adjust to Premier League live with Brighton. However, it may not be of the same quality and standard that they've had over recent years. And I think those inconsistencies, both in terms of the squad, the turnover, the managerial changes constantly, has to eventually catch up at some point. And I feel like this season, just a little bit of a step back. 12th place for Brighton is what I have. Now, next up in 11th place, we have Everton. Feels like over the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years, Everton have been trying their hardest to flirt with relegation. This season, being in a new stadium, I feel like things will be a little bit different. Of course, Sir Toffee, David Moyes, is back at the helm and saw them finish comfortably 13th last year after Sean Dyche's sacking in January. This season so far, they've spent about 50 million. And the most interesting signing of the lot for me is Villarreal forward Tierno Barry, who has come in 6'5" man mountain, who scored 11 goals last year at Villarreal. And I feel like he's almost like a prototypical David Moyes striker. That physical, big guy, can hold the ball up, has a bit of technical ability, can find an eye for a goal every once in a while, and could be a little bit of an upgrade on Beto, who did perform well in the second half of last season, but also bring that little bit of competition that he needs as well. Now, there's talks potentially of Dewsbury Hall coming in as well, Jack Grealish potentially coming in as well, Tyler Diblin potentially coming in as well. This Everton team could look completely rejuvenated by the end of the window, but none of those signings are officially over the line as the time of this recording. But it's very interesting to see them looking at those types of players, because that's what the caliber of players Everton always used to be looked at as. Before you go to join a top 6 club, you got to go Everton, see if you can hack it there. And I feel like those types of players, Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, Dibbling, they can find a new lease of life at a club like Everton. And this season, I think they'll be very, very far from flirting with relegation. I think it'll be a nice, refreshing change for Everton fans. 10th place, reaching the top half territory now, we have Nottingham Forest. Now listen, they had a brilliant season last year competing for those UEFA Champions League spots, but unfortunately in the end they finished 7th place, and I think order just took its place naturally. But of course, big loss over the summer with Anthony Elanga, who pretty much revived his career after leaving United to make himself arguably one of the best wingers in the Premier League, has gone on to join Newcastle. Dan Ndoye has been brought in as his replacement from Bologna. I think he got 8 goals and 4 assists last year. These are going to be big shoes to fill, in my opinion. Keeping a hold of Gibbs White, however, I do feel like is almost like a signing within itself. He is like their main linchpin in midfield, their captain, their chief creator, chips in with a few goals as well. I would have loved to have seen him at Tottenham, but I think Marinakis did the right mafia boss move, should we say, in keeping him, and I think that's a huge one. And especially as a club like Forest, when... Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me, though? You don't want to be seen as being bullied in the Premier League, I feel like. A lot of these mid-table clubs, when players tend to overperform and do very well, the big clubs come swimming like sharks, and if you just allow yourself to get bullied, players every summer will want to demand to move and not be interested in whatever project you have going on. It'll be interesting to see how Forest adapt to this season having European football as well, but I do think that is going to negate their league performance a little bit, and because of that they're going to finish 10th place mid-table. 9th, next up we have Bournemouth. Now listen, as well as Bournemouth have done since Iraola took over, I think it could be a tough season for them, especially defensively. When you look at losing the likes of Milos Kerkez at left back, you lost Dean Huijsens to Real Madrid, Zebani has just got the here we go to PSG. That is 3 of your back 4, and let's not even include Kepa, because he's just gone to Arsenal to sit on the bench as well. That's 4 of your back 5 last year are not going to be there. And I think no matter what team you are, if you have that much of a change around in your defence, there's always going to be a little bit of adaptation time. However, in attack, they are still very exciting in my opinion. Of course, you've got Anthony Semenyo, who's absolutely shelled it up last season, getting a massive contract as well, which is another statement of intent, I think. But they have signed another French wonder kid from Lorient, Elie Krupi. Very exciting player. He can play in the 10, can play in the 9. Good bit of technical ability, very fast as well. I think he could come in and add a nice wrinkle to this Bournemouth side that they don't currently have, in my opinion, and bring something a little bit different to the likes of Evan Nilsson, the Semenyos, the Cliverts, and just add a bit of fresh excitement to that. Do I think Bournemouth will be competing for the European spots in the same way they did last year? No. But do I think they could be outsiders for that Conference League spot? Potentially, which is why I have them 9th place. 8th place, we have Manchester United. Now, this one for me was, I can't lie, the most difficult team to kind of gauge or judge. I actually think there is cause for excitement at Manchester United and for Manchester United fans to be excited this season because it's Ruben Amorim's first full season. He'll have a pre-season under his belt now. And I feel like his players should understand his system a little bit better. Now, coming into the season, they're coming in with a completely new attack as well. Guys like Brian Mbeumo getting signed, Mateus Cunha, Benjamin Sesko has just got the here we go as well. Those are 3 players that I feel like fit Ruben Amorim's system really well. And then you look at how many goals they scored, and Mbeumo scored 20 goals last season. Cunha scoring 17, Sesko scoring 21. Goals win you games at the end of the day. And no matter what, United have needed goals over the last few seasons. They have relied for so long on individual brilliances from Rashford, Garnacho, Ahmad, Bruno. Someone please get us out of jail. And I'm sorry, there's only so long you can survive off that. You needed an overhaul of your attack, and they finally got it. And I always feel like when you overhaul your attack in this type of manner, with quality players who are proven in the Premier League, which is something I feel like United over the last few years haven't done. It's kind of like a Fergie method. Forget the foreign lot and all that. You lot know what this league is about. You lot know how to play already. And that's what Brian Mbeumo and Cunha are going to bring. Now, Sesko is the gamble. People are saying, oh, could it be Højlund 2.0? I think in terms of tools-wise, he is actually very well equipped. How quickly he's able to get those tools together and put something together, that is maybe going to be the question. But I think with that attack, they are going to be a different side, whether you like it or not. That is maybe going to have a little bit of an impact on Ahmad. Could that see him move to the wing-back areas? I don't think that's a bad issue to have. You've got more depth at wing-back now with the likes of Ahmad, with the likes of Dorgu, Dalot, Mazraoui. That sounds like a good couple of options at wing-back, in my opinion. Then you look at centre-back as well. They've got decent depth there with Lenny Yoro. You've got Lisandro coming back from injury. You've got De Ligt, who showed he can play last year. You've got Harry Maguire, who showed he can still has signs of life. I feel like there's 2 weak areas in this United team, and that's the midfield for me, and Andre Onana in goal. I'm sorry, I can't ignore Andre Onana's performances over the last 2 years. And I like Onana, but that is a weak link in your team. As long as he is there, I'm sorry, there is a glaring hole in your team. And in that midfield, I just don't feel like there's a right balance yet. None of those guys really fill me with confidence that they're going to own those midfield roles like Ruben Amorim wants his midfield to be. So playing 1 game a week could be the biggest benefit for United in all this, because now they won't have any European fixtures. They'll have 7 days between every game. And I think that could play in their favour in terms of not struggling as much this season. But I do think they could be back in these kind of European spots. And 8th place, maybe it is a little bit low, but I do think they will be back competing in the European spots. Yeah. Now, next up, 7th place, we have Newcastle. Now, of course, finishing 5th last year, which got them Champions League football. But I feel like we saw the impact of Champions League football on their season a couple seasons ago, 2 seasons ago, I think it was. And I think the same will potentially happen again. Newcastle will still be a tough team to play. Let's not get it twisted. They started the window with pretty much a big bang, to be fair. With Anthony Elanga coming in, you thought, wow, that's going to add some serious depth to the wing with Gordon there, with Barnes there, Murphy getting double figures in assists last year. You're going to need that with the extra cup games. But now, as the window has gone on, we haven't really seen any more movement. And there's even more talks of potential Isak leaving. I'm sorry, but if Alexander Isak leaves Newcastle, you lot are in huge trouble. You lot are in huge trouble. And I think it's very much an indictment on the project itself as well, if Isak leaves, because it kind of goes to show you that there's a ceiling on this project. And the whole reason why apparently Isak wants to leave is because Newcastle have apparently reneged on a contract that he was supposed to get last year. And the reason why they're not able to offer him that contract is because of the PSR restrictions. They can't overspend. Now, this will be a huge loss for Newcastle on and off the pitch, in my opinion. And listen, they're going to have to find his replacement very quickly. And we know the replacements have been running short. Gyökeres obviously going to Arsenal. You've got Sesko choosing United. You've got Mbeumo choosing United. I think now they're linked with Kolo Muani. So whoever it is you're going to get in, you better get him in quick and fix this. Now, 6th place, we have the mighty Europa League champions, Tottenham Hotspur. And I know in the SDS prediction video I had them 5th, but I've taken a little bit of a stock check. And of course, a few things have happened over the last week or so, which have kind of made me review things a little bit. Now, of course, this season is a completely new season for us, a fresh start, and that's because we have a new manager here now, and it is the Thomas Frank era. We now have a tactically flexible manager, which I never had before. I'm sorry, but someone who understands how to play the right system on the right occasion. A manager who has developed youngsters and coached senior players to get better. A good communicator who speaks well And maybe not in kind of like the movie quotes that Ange Postecoglou used to speak with, but real clarity in his ideas. Now, of course, that beginning means also the end of the Son Heung-min era, who has just announced after our Asian tour in Hong Kong and South Korea that he will be leaving the club to join LAFC. Wow, man. You always felt like this day would come, but you almost never expected it to. It's a tough one. Shout out Son Heung-min, one of the most loyal soldiers we will ever know at this club. A real legend at this club, in my opinion. Someone who stayed when times were tough, stayed when other players left, and stayed to win that trophy that we were crying for 17 years. So big up yourself. Hope you have an incredible time in LAFC, but we must move forward. Of course, this summer we brought in Tel, we brought in Kudus and Palinha, and I feel like those are good strength in depth. Players that come and add quality to the first team, players that can give options off the bench. Playing in multiple cups this year, you're going to need that as well. Now, of course, unlucky in the Morgan Gibbs white bid, it would have added extra strength and depth, but I feel like that is what's going to be needed this year. Bodies, numbers, quality. Now, of course, I mentioned Son leaving to go to LAFC, but one of the other big changes in this team now is going to have to be James Maddison, who is out for the next 7 to 9 months, basically the whole season because of an ACL injury he's picked up in pre-season. Now, very, very unfortunate. Wish him the speediest of recoveries. But that is a huge loss for us in terms of creativity, in terms of having that strength and depth that we're talking about, competing for multiple trophies. That is going to impact us. And now you've already got Kulusevski out. You've got Maddison out. Who's going to play in that 10 position? This is where it helps, obviously, bringing in players like Kudus who can play across multiple positions. But I feel like we have to go out there and sign a replacement now. You have now till the end of the window to address that position. Someone like an Ebere Eze. Someone like a Magnus Achliush, who is at Monaco. Those two I'm looking at in particular. They can cover the number 10 position. They can cover the left wing role, which Son has left behind. You've just lost two of your biggest players, arguably, there. Go and address that. We address that, I think we could be in for a very exciting season. A lot of young talents coming through. A new manager coming in with an identity and a philosophy. And I still feel like there were key pieces there from before. The Van der Vens, the Romeros, the Kulusevski, the Poros that can be built upon as well. So, as much as last season happened and we were 17th place, I actually do think it was a blip. And there was a big injury record that people overlooked. But this season could be a more exciting one. And I'm hopeful that we can maybe sneak into those Champions League spots. Now, 5th place, next up, we have Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa finished 6th place last year, whilst also playing Champions League football. For me, last season, what they showed was they were well equipped for multiple competitions and arguably, in my opinion, have one of the deepest squads in terms of strength and depth and competing for positions in the entire Premier League. Now, the experience of Unai Emery, of course, will play a huge part in terms of managing how those minutes are kind of divvied out. But even last year in the Champions League, we saw that they can have big moments in Europe, but then still come back to the league and still be a respectable side. I think Ollie Watkins will once again be needed this season. I think last season people look at his campaign and thought maybe he was a little bit underwhelming, but he left the season with 16 goals and 8 assists. I think the main player for them, however, we can't ignore Morgan Rogers. What a player, man. I love that guy, honestly. The way he plays football the right way. A freight train of a midfielder, honestly. And I think if he can replicate anywhere near his form last year, he is going to cement his place on that World Cup squad in 2026. But as I mentioned, I feel like they've got a great manager, great depth. They've got key quality players in key positions. I don't think there's actually many holes in this Aston Villa team. I think they'll comfortably be in those Europa League spots again, and they'll be pushing for the Champions League spots. 4th place, now we're entering top 4 territory. I have gone back and forth with this one. Is it going to be Arsenal? Is it going to be Chelsea? Is it going to be City? But I have settled for the world champions, Chelsea. Now, ultimately, what made me settle on this was Chelsea's refusal to replace Robert Sanchez. And listen, he did really well in that Club World Cup. Fair play to you. But I feel like after winning that would have been the perfect send-off, bro. Got your great PR, got your great performances, go and find yourself another club. Especially when there was an opportunity to get Mike Maignan, and guys were haggling over 8 million, I think it was. And then there's now even talks of Donnarumma potentially being available. And I'm seeing Chelsea are still sticking with Robert Sanchez. So it kind of just makes me think, no matter what you're building in front of that, as long as you've got that weak link there, it's going to be a problem. Elsewhere, I feel like there have been great additions. João Pedro has been an excellent addition, scoring goals left, right, and centre since signing. Had a storming debut in the Club World Cup as well. Liam Delap, I think, is going to be a great addition to the attack as well. Bring a different type of profile to what João Pedro is. Bino Gittins is another great addition as well. Young, exciting prospect. Had his best season ever at Dortmund last year. Jorel Hato, great signing from you guys, I can't lie. Especially considering Levi Colwill and Fofana are both out long term. I think Tosin and Chalobah, you've got two quality centre-backs there who I think should have been the starters anyway, in my opinion, and are very underrated in this Chelsea team. But I think Jorel Hato just comes in, gives a bit of depth to Cucurella at left-back, gives a bit of cover to that centre-back position as well. So I think they've recruited well. They've added on top of the good youngsters that they had last year. But then I do think that Robert Sanchez's weakness is just going to impact them in that kind of title race, kind of maybe a little bit. Last season, we saw them compete for the title all the way up until Christmas. This season, I think it will potentially maybe go on for a little bit longer, but it will fail away at the end. Third place, I have gone for Manchester City. And there's two particular reasons why I've gone for Manchester City ahead of Chelsea. One, Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola, of course, one of the greatest managers in football history. But he is a man who last season suffered. He suffered a lot on the pitch and off the pitch with both Man City and his personal life. This season, he's a man who's got his wife back. This season, he's a man who's got a chip on his shoulder. A man in love and a man with a chip on his shoulder is the most dangerous man you can fuck with in this world. But reason number two is Erling Haaland. There is no way I can ignore this man. This is still one of the most deadliest finishers the Premier League has ever seen. And I feel like this season he has seen all the chirping, he has seen all the hype around Sesko, Gyökeres, Ekitike. I feel like this season he's just going to remind us what a demon he is. Now, of course, we cannot replace Kevin. We cannot ignore Kevin's departure. That will be a huge loss both on and off the field. However, I do feel like they have had an interesting window. They've signed Cherky in that number 10 position. They've signed Reinders, who is one of the best 8s in Europe at the moment, in my opinion. Ait Nouri, who we mentioned earlier, and James Trafford in goal as well. Then you add into that Rodri, potentially coming back. This is the Ballon d'Or holder. Now, he might not be at the same level he was previous years, but I'm expecting Rodri to be back. Then you add on top of that, Oscar Bob. I think everybody's almost forgotten Oscar Bob. Last year, I had him tipped as my breakout player because what he was doing in preseason last year was magical. This season, I hope we see the best version of Oscar Bob again. I still think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in that defense, in my opinion, because I'm still seeing Mateus Nunes at right back. I'm sorry, I know you sold Kyle Walker. I know Rico Lewis doesn't quite cut the mustard at right back, but I still feel like there's holes in that team. I think the defense is maybe the only thing holding them back a little bit. But outside of that, I'm expecting a much better Man City team this season. And I do think they will still challenge for the title. But I just don't think it's enough. Now, number 2. Runners up. Drum roll, please. The Arsenal. Unfortunately, Arsenal fans, it is another season of finishing runners up. Despite having a decent window, I feel like you've upgraded on Partey with Zubimendi. Massively bolstered the depth in goal, in defence and in midfield with the signings of Kepa, Mosquera and Madueke. And you finally addressed the number 9 issue with Gyökeres finally coming in, who has been touted for a big move forever. But does that tip you over the edge? Not for me. I don't know if this window has really closed that gap in terms of what Liverpool have done in their window. Now, I do think Arsenal will be a much better team to watch this season. In my opinion, I think if there's a real chance of success this season for Arsenal fans, it will be in the Champions League. And I feel like this year you're probably better equipped more than ever this year. I feel like tactically Arteta's someone who I feel like does really well in the Champions League, and his side is almost set up for Champions League games, and we kind of saw moments of that last year. But I feel like with the signings of Gyökeres, with the signings of Zubimendi, those should be moving the needle in the Champions League, in my opinion, and make you a more fluid team, a more multifunctional team as well, who's able to play different styles. So I actually think even if the Premier League doesn't really work out, Arsenal fans shouldn't completely rule out the Champions League. Any underperformances people feel like he hasn't delivered on, that will overwrite everything. That will etch him in Arsenal history forever. And it's probably the worst thing I would personally want to see. But I do think it is a realistic target and it is a realistic options. And Arsenal fans shouldn't, act like it's above them or it's too much for them, because I do think there is quality in this side. I do think they should be a better side this season than last year. Maybe not enough to win the Premier League, but definitely enough to win elsewhere. And I'm sorry, Arteta, if you can't deliver the Premier League, that's not the only trophy available. You better deliver an FA Cup. You better deliver a Carabao Cup. You better deliver something to soothe the pain. Because if you don't, I'm sorry, I can't see Arteta lasting after this season. And of course, in first place, we have the current champions, Liverpool, who will actually be retaining their first ever Premier League titles back-to-back, I think. Now, they won the title last year, 10 points clear on 84 points. And most teams would rest on their laurels and sign maybe one, maybe two players and hope to retain one or two. But this is how champions are supposed to behave. We lose our golden boy Trent, no problem. Jeremy Frimpong, one of the most exciting fullbacks in Europe, come here now. Oh, Robertson, you're on your way out. Hey, Kirkes, you're the new Robbo. Transfer record? Let's just go break that. Florian, come. Oh, Darwin, you still haven't clicked in your third season. No problem. Ekatike, come. And you know what? We'll bring your big bros up. Hey, Isaac, you as well. Come here. Now, the Isaac one isn't confirmed. But this is how champions are supposed to move. This might be one of the best windows, in my opinion, since Real Madrid 2009. You finish with a 10-point gap. You have a window like that. It's very hard for me to look at it and say, do you know what? You're not going to retain your crown. But then you add on top of that the sad news, of course, and what that dressing room has suffered this summer with the loss of Diego Jota. And my thoughts go out to his family, his wife, his kids. But the extra motivation that this team will be playing with this season because of that. Playing for their teammate. That number has now been retired. Being the club that Liverpool is, it's a real kind of like community club. The way they all get behind each other, I think that is going to bring them closer. I think that is going to be something that they use as motivation. I'm looking at it, I'm like, they've got one of the best managers, they've got one of the best squads, they've had one of the best windows, and now they have this extra motivation as well. And I can't see them slowing down. I would not be surprised if they win more than just the Premier League. I'm sure they will be looking at that Champions League campaign last year and thinking, do you know what? We're going to get it back in blood. But people, that will be all for today. Those are my Premier League predictions. Let me know your thoughts as well. Let me know if you think I've ranked someone too high, someone too low. Where do you think teams should be finishing? Have I ranked your team accordingly? So let me know your thoughts, good or bad. Please leave a like in the video if you're at this point as well. There will be plenty more content coming out as well. If you guys want to see a watch along for the Wednesday Super Cup game as well, let me know in the comments. Appreciate you guys joining me on this first video back. Hopefully plenty more to come. Make sure you stay tuned. I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.